It is September in Toronto, Canada, which means that it is time for the Toronto International Film Festival. The only film festival or major film festival that I ever attend, because I'm not invited to any of the other ones. And while usually I do get a pass thanks to a friend named Peter, who may program for the festival, I always see tons of movies. But I usually keep it to letterbox reviews. I don't have like a place that pays me a couple dollars to do reviews of these movies. And a lot of the times the films are really big and there's a nervousness because everyone's reviewing it. Do I have anything that I would have to add of any value? This year, I'm saying, doesn't matter. I'm going to review the movies that I see on video. And of course, I will do it walking, usually away from the theater after it's happened, so you can hear all the sounds around me. And I will also do films that I may not have that much to add on them. Wow, what a hook that I hope you'll be watching every day as I post these videos. First up, I saw Jonathan Glazer's Zone of Interest. Now, when I heard the premise of this one, I went, uh-oh. It's a World War II film that deals with the Holocaust. And for people that don't know, there are so many World War II films, specifically Holocaust films, that are released all the time. People usually deal with this subject in a way that they're kind of patting themselves on the back. They're going, oh, wasn't this horrible? But we'll never do this again. And what's interesting about the way that Jonathan Glazer approached this is that he wants a feeling of normalcy to all this. And by doing that, it makes it that more horrifying. It's the story of the Nazi general commander, man, I'm not good with those kind of terms, especially when I'm improvising while I'm walking, that was in charge of Auschwitz. And it documents his family as they lived right beside it, the wall of the camp butting up against their property, and just showing how idyllic their life was. And Jonathan Glazer does it by not showing you really anything. You're always catching it out of the corner of your eyes. You hear the screams, you hear gunshots, but it's always off in the distance. And Glazer does something really interesting in that at first he's just giving you brief glimpses of stuff, not setting anything up. You're just coming in and out of this family's kind of day-to-day, and you eventually realize, wow, they have a good life, or they perceive to have a good life, while all this stuff is going on around them that they realize, or they know about. And that's what makes it extra horrifying. And I think that Glazer's kind of take on this material, it's based very loosely on a book by Martin Amis. Am I saying that wrong? Is that he, wants you to become aware of what you're seeing, and by consequence, it becomes more horrifying. This is a technique that's been used a lot when you're dealing with like really horrific stuff. For example, he even uses a little bit of a technique from the act of killing in the final moments of the movie. And you also have, of course, the, Titanic Shoah, which dealt with these kind of events, but did it in a way where you would never actually see anything. You would only see the aftermath. And by doing that, you're not given that escape valve of seeing something like turn suspenseful or visualized on screen, because I feel like as human beings, oftentimes when we see something, we can then disconnect from it just because we visualize it as opposed to how actual horrifying it can be, which usually only happens when we imagine it in our own mind, which is a really depressing thing to think about because we don't consider ourselves, thinking beings like that, but that's really the reality of the thing. And Jonathan Glazer really tunes into that, especially in the way that you think that the film is going to present itself in a kind of disconnected fashion, but he's tricking you in these beautiful tableaus that have a horrific kind of thing going on in the background that you eventually kind of get involved in what's happening. These heady or, just regular day-to-day things of a family who is really horrible because they're accepting what's happening, going on with their day. So, and that's something else I want to, put a point in, is that this is, in its way, a gorgeous looking film that every frame has something new to kind of soak in because of the context that it's being presented in. Jonathan Glazer is he's been compared to Kubrick. I mean, he is a super famous music video director. I became aware of him mostly through those DVDs that were released in the early 2000s. And his was really funny and really innovative, especially in the way that he doesn't have a particular style, that he's always approaching his projects. And he basically makes a feature film every 10 years in a different way. With Zone of Interest, it's almost like, and I don't mean this glibly, but Wes Anderson in the way that some of the things are tableaus that he'll cut into like a close-up of who's going over apples, or, you know, people going through a field and you just catch them right out of the corner of your eye to make an impact. So I went into this film, well, not excited, because that'd be a weird word for this film, but interested in it very lightly, only because of Jonathan Glazer's involvement in it. And I went out going, man, this is a excellent film, and I can see exactly why people would want to make it. So on that note, tackling a big, heavy subject right off the top, I will continue to see these films at the Toronto International Film Festival. I hope you will join, and I will see you with the next movie that I see.